Oh, hello everyone. Okay, so now beginning an introductory course on astrology where I'm going to cover a lot of the basics. A lot of basic information I think people still don't understand or aren't fully grasping when I read a lot of things on the internet or just my general feeling about the astrological community, is that a lot of us don't really know our basics well enough, and so it's hard to even debate or even address issues or try to teach or learn without that. And astrology really is just the fundamentals being recycled over and over and over. And so if you don't know enough about the planets and the foundational things like the planets and the signs and all that, then you can only do so much. Like if you don't know that Mars would rule like minerals and gemstones and things like that. A lot of people don't know that. But Mars rules wealth coming from the earth, and Mars is said to even be born from the earth. If you didn't know that, then how could you ever do anything with gemstones and stuff? Like you would maybe even be thinking, oh, like Venus because it's pretty and things like that, and maybe some Mercury because it's like skilled to work with it. And that would be true in like just a real vague general sense, but if you want to be right, you don't want to be vague in general. You want to be exacting. You want to be completely correct in every way. And that's what a real Vedic astrologer is supposed to be. So in order to be that way, you have to really, really know your fundamentals and train and meditate and be very, very deep in the way that you think about these things and contemplate them, and to have a disciplined life. And a lot of other things you have to kind of do. You have to, be on top of your life and have a awake mind to think and to understand these things. And it's hard. It's not easy. Astrology is an eighth house profession, so it's a challenging profession. It's not really the easiest profession. And I actually recently had a lot of people saying or implying that astrologers make a lot of money or do really well, or they assume that, and I've been telling people, no, that's not really the case. And maybe in Asia it is because the culture accepts it more. And of course, in ancient times, the government subsidized it and paid for astrologers basically and paid their income because it was seen as such a necessary thing for the society to have good astrologers. But here in America, I mean, only 30% of people would even be open to what I mentioned. Statistically, the other 60% think that I am a con artist and believe that astrology is fake and completely untrue, and so that I must just be a really good con artist. And I actually really do see that. Like when I tell people, I can see it in their eyes. It's unfortunate. I don't really have time to explain everything about it. Sometimes I like to just say I'm a counselor if I think it's going to be annoying to have to go into all that. I live in the Bible Belt, though, in the southeast of the United States. It's called the Bible Belt because it's mainly just sort of like a fundamentalist Christian sort of mentality up until the last 20 years, and cable TV and the internet has helped with that to some degree. So maybe it's a little bit easier in California for astrologers or somewhere like that. But it's definitely a challenging profession, a challenging career across the board. So one of the best things I can recommend if you're into astrology or studying it or wanting to do it and wanting to do readings for people is to kind of be aware of that. And then the only other thing I can really say is to just really, really know your fundamentals and really know your basics. And you'll continue to grow off of that foundation. So, with that said, there's really like just these 7 basic ingredients to astrology in many ways. Just like how there are just 7 colors to the rainbow or 7 notes to the musical scale. But look at how much we can do with that. Look at how many colors can be created from mixing those 7 colors. Look at how much music can be created by just those 7 notes. computers with binary systems, it's just 0 and a 1, and look at what everything a computer can do. So with 7 things going on, and then 9 counting Rahu and Ketu, and then if you include the outer planets, which don't rule things but are involved and have influence, you go up to 12 things, and that's quite a lot of variables going on, which makes for a very interesting creation that we are dwelling in now. So the better you can know the 7 planets, or the 9 in counting Rahu and Ketu, the better an astrologer you'll be. The signs just kind of are an extension of that, as well as the houses and other things. And then, of course, you need to know about the moon and nakshatras as well, but that's sort of a separate thing. And you can still do a really amazing job even if you don't know anything about that. But that is also a very cool and very fascinating and profound aspect of Jyotish. So I can't neglect mentioning that. But I'm not going to be going hardcore on the nakshatras just yet, because the planets really are more of the foundation. But nakshatras do have an influence. For example, right now, we have been having these riots with Charlottesville and all this talk of white supremacy and crazy stuff, no doubt due to the eclipse, the Rahu energy of the eclipse coming out. But the sun was transiting into Magha Nakshatra with Rahu during the time that those riots happened, within like 1 or 2 days of that happening. And Magha Nakshatra relates to the Pitris, which are the ancestral fathers. So they have a huge deal to do with ancestral karma. And so Rahu also is a planet of ancestral karma, and then the sun is a planet of like fatherhood too, and like it kind of has to do with like your pride of pedigree and lineage and things like that. And so you have this good sun, but then this Rahu involved, and in the nakshatra of the Pitris, I think Mercury was in that too, and is in that now still. You had a lot of heat and a lot of fire and strife dealing with ancestral karmas, aka slavery and white and black issues in America. Those are a huge ancestral issue, especially in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the Southeast, where slavery happened, but really all over America. So that's kind of one example, just off the top of my head, of how nakshatras are definitely factoring in, and they're definitely important to know about. But the planets are the main thing to know about. So there's one way to really think about the planets that I want to give you guys to contemplate, which is a really powerful way to understand the planets in that sort of as above, so below way. And that's with the Planetary Kingdom, as it's called. So the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra explains this. It comes from that text, but might be written in other texts as well. Basically, the sun is the king, the moon is the queen. Excuse me. Sun is the king, moon is the queen. They're the royalty of the zodiac, and they have the most strength and power, so they get the best signs of the zodiac, the summertime signs of July and August. Prime summertime, when you have the most daylight. From there, you get to, if you go from both of those signs, if you move one away from Cancer, you get to Gemini, and if you move one away from Leo, you get to Virgo. Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury. Mercury is called the prince, or the heir apparent to the throne, the next one to become king. So that's Mercury. And so that's why Mercury signs are right next to the sun and the moon signs. And astronomically, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. And a sharp Mercury helps us grasp and become very intelligent and cognize and understand things. And it's really our understanding that eventually has to become spiritualized and become Through self-realization, we basically become one with God. So Mercury is an very important planet. From Mercury, the heir apparent, then you get to Libra, the signs of you get to Venus, the signs of Libra and Taurus. If you're going from Gemini, you get to Taurus, and then going from Virgo, you get to Libra. Those are the two signs of Venus, and Venus is the minister, or parliament, in a sense, of the kingdom. He is the ministerial, one of the ministerial people, the advisor to the king. And Venus is more the worldly advisor, because the worldly advisor is what the king relies on more often, and so you'll notice that those signs are closer to the king. There's actually another advisor, which is Jupiter. We'll get to that in a second. But from Taurus and Libra, then moving further out from the king, you get to Mars, which is the knight, or the general, or the commander, or the overseer, or the sovereign person. But you can just think of him as the general. That's Aries and Scorpio. So Aries and Scorpio are, kind of further from the sun, and they don't really get as good of real estate, because Mars is really just who you consult when you have work to be done and you have an issue to address. So war isn't that common, and so the knight and the commander are a little bit further away than, say, the minister, Venus. So from there, moving one more over, now we get to Jupiter's signs. We get to Pisces and Sagittarius. Jupiter is the other ministerial planet, or the minister to the king. But Jupiter is more like the spiritual advisor, the spiritual minister, the priest, or like the priesthood and the church. And so those things are not that common, not that regularly needed by the sun. So only when the sun is having an existential crisis, or a time when he really needs to do the wise thing for himself or whatever, only at those times does he need to consult Jupiter. So it's a little bit further away. And then from there, you get to Saturn signs, Capricorn and Aquarius, which is wintertime, the darkest days of the year, and the days with the least light. And Saturn is the servant, or the Sudra, or the servant amongst the planets. So he's like the one who, the common folk, the masses, the people who just have to do the menial labor. And so naturally they get like the they get the worst real estate out of the zodiac. And they have they don't have the choice of the prime real estate, because they are just the servants. And then also notice that the religion, the priestly class, is closer to the servants, because they need that more, because they are suffering more. But there's also that funny thing about how God loves the meek, like it says in the Bible, and how the avatars in Hinduism are always really fond of poor, impoverished people, because they have nothing to do but rely on God. Whereas when we have everything we want, we don't really remember God that easily. So it's kind of funny how those Saturn and Jupiter energies are in the lowest part on the Earth, but in the context of the zodiac, they're at the very end of the zodiac. So they're the ones who are about to be liberated. They're the ones who are closer to the end of the cosmic cycle, and they're getting the most wisdom, and they're learning the most. So they're really the winners in many ways of the zodiac. So that planetary kingdom is a really, really cool thing to think about, and a great way to understand the planets. So now people who are ruled by the sun, of course they're alpha males, or they're alpha leaders, alpha women, whatever, because they're the king, or they have that energy. And of course Cancers, are kind of comfortable with being like, they want to be loved the most, or the most sensitive. They want to be adored the most, and that's like the queen. You know what I mean? Everyone adores the queen. She's like the, ideally the most adored woman in the kingdom. And then, why are Sagittarius people so philosophical? Well, because they are that philosophical guru, that ministerial planet, that priest-like planet. So you can see a lot of connections, and you can begin to learn a lot about the zodiac through this. And you can understand why the signs are arranged the way they are, and how there is actually great beauty in that. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to explain a little bit about that in relation to the chakras. Okay, thanks, y'all.